Tuberculosis is a chronic infectious disease that has been known to mankind since ancient times. It is believed that the genus Mycobacterium was present in the environment about 150 million years ago. In fact, archaeologists found tubercular bacilli remains of a mother and a child buried together and can be traced back 9,000 years ago to a city that is now buried underneath the Mediterranean Sea. Really impressive in my opinion. But wait, how exactly does it spread? At the location of the infection, usually the lungs, there's the formation of ulcers which in time heal rapidly but spread internally through the lymph nodes and will reactivate if there were repeated infections which would cause lesions. Pharmacologic agents for treatment of tuberculosis are utilized in a hierarchical fashion. First-line agents for treatment of tuberculosis consist of isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and streptomycin. Presence of drug resistance, contraindication, or intolerance to first-line agents may warrant substitution with one or more second-line agents. Para-aminosalicylic acid, PAS, ethionamide, cycloserine are examples of second-line drugs. When you compare them, first-line is more affordable, effective, routinely used, and a less toxic option for treating tuberculosis, while second-line tuberculosis medications are more expensive, less efficient, and toxic. They are preferred as the reserve drug to treat tuberculosis. The other classification is based on mechanism of action. Firstly, the drugs associated with the inhibition of mycolic acid production are isoniazid and ethionamide, while inhibition of cell membrane is by pyrazinamide and inhibition of transcription is by rifampicin. Cell wall synthesis is inhibited by ethambutol. Drugs that inhibit protein synthesis are streptomycin. PAS inhibit folate metabolism and bedaquiline inhibits ATP synthase. Focusing on first-line anti-tubercular drugs, we have isoniazid, also known as isonicotinic acid hydrazine, INH. It is most widely used and orally effective. A very important point is that it is active against both intracellular and extracellular bacilli. It has a bactericidal effect on multiplying bacilli. It is the first line of drug for treatment and is also used for chemoprophylaxis. Chemoprophylaxis is a way to treat the disease after infection. It acts by inhibiting mycolic acid. It is metabolized by acetylation, which is a genetically controlled process. In acetylation, isoniazid binds to acetyl-CoA and forms isonicotinic acid in the liver. But why should we know this? Based on how rapidly isoniazid undergoes acetylation, patients can either be fast or slow acetylators. This is clinically important as due to their rapid metabolism. Fast acetylators require a higher dose of the drug, while slow acetylators are more predisposed to the toxic effects of the drug. Adverse effects include hepatotoxicity, which can cause hemolysis in G6PD deficiency, peripheral neuritis. Other effects include psychosis, seizures, transient memory loss, gynecomastia, skin rashes, fever, and anemia. It is important to note INH-induced neuropathy is treated with pyridoxine. Isoniazid has a very interesting and rare side effect. It's called the cheese reaction. Imagine a person recently infected with tuberculosis under treatment with isoniazid having a dinner of bread and cheese with a glass of wine. Sounds pretty normal, right? But then his face became flushed. He felt his throat was constricting and he had a massive headache. After ruling out any life-threatening events, it was eventually attributed to isoniazid reacting with his dinner. So what happened here? This reaction to cheese represents what is known as Tyromin syndrome or cheese reaction. It is characterized by skin flushing, sweating, tachycardia, dyspnea, headaches, and conjunctival infections. Isoniazid interacts with anti-epileptic drugs like phenytoin and carbamazepine and may increase their serum levels. The next first-line anti-tubercular drug is rifampin, otherwise known as rifampicin. An important characteristic is that it rapidly kills both intracellular and extracellular bacilli. It has a bactericidal effect against dividing and non-dividing bacilli, and as we discussed earlier, it inhibits the transcription of bacteria. Rifampicin is the only bactericidal drug active against dormant bacteria in solid lesions. It is mainly used in combination with isoniazid and other anti-tubercular drugs. Also used for prophylaxis of leprosy, prophylaxis of meningococcal infections, that is meningitis, and rifampin and doxycycline are used in treatment of brucellosis. Brucellosis is an infection caused when exposed to animals and animal products. Its adverse effects include hepatitis, flu symptoms like fever, chills, headache, and muscle or joint pain. It also shows GI disturbances like nausea, vomiting, and abdominal discomfort. Skin rashes, itching, and flushing are also observed. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and placental barrier, hence should not be used in pregnant women. Rifampicin also has an interesting and perhaps the most important side effect. Patients on rifampin can come complaining of blood in urine, orange staining of their contact lenses and saliva. A common marker for this drug is orange staining of body fluids like tears, saliva, and urine. So instead of blood, like the patient thinks, the urine itself becomes orange in color. A weird symptom, but hopefully makes it easier to remember. Rifampicin enhances the metabolism of anticonvulsants, OCPs, oral anticoagulants, antiretroviral drugs, etc. A female on OCP should either increase the dosage of the pill or consider an alternative method of contraception while on rifampin. Patient on warfarin therapy should be changed to unfractioned heparin or low molecular weight heparin. Alright, so the next drug is pyrazinamide. It is bactericidal in nature, acts only against intracellular mycobacterium and inhibits the cell membrane. It also has excellent penetration into the cerebrospinal fluid. It gets activated in an acidic medium, therefore is a good sterilizing agent. It gets metabolized in the liver and excreted in the urine. Its adverse effects include hepatotoxicity and hyperuricemia occurring more commonly. It may also cause precipitated attacks of gout in susceptible patients, and other side effects may include photosensitivity and GI side effects. Moving on to the next drug, ethambutol. It is bacteriostatic in nature, acts by inhibiting arbenosyl transferase, which inhibits the synthesis of arbenogalactin, which is a component of the cell wall in Mycobacterium. It is metabolized in the liver, excreted in the urine, and may cross the blood-brain barrier in meningitis. Its adverse effects include dose dependence and reversible visual disturbances like optic neuritis, which presents itself as reduced visual acuity, central scotoma, and red-green color blindness. It is due to the effect of amacrine and bipolar cells of the retina. Hence, a periodic eye examination is advised for patients under ethambutol. And lastly, we have streptomycin. It is a bactericidal aminoglycoside and must be administered by IM injection. It is active only against extracellular bacteria and is non-hepatotoxic. This drug is also contraindicated in pregnancy. So, to summarize, we saw that except for ethambutol, all the first-line drugs are bactericidal. We also saw that isoniazid and rifampicin are active against both intracellular and extracellular mycobacterium, whereas pyrazinamide and ethambutol are active against intracellular and extracellular bacilli respectively. It is also important to note that ethambutol is excreted by the kidney while the other three are excreted by the liver. Rifampicin is the safest in patients with renal failure. Let us now discuss the second-line anti-tubercular drugs. Para-aminosalicylic acid, PAS, a second-line anti-tubercular agent, inhibits folate synthase enzyme and produces a tuberculostatic effect. It is used for multi-drug resistant tubercular bacilli. It may cause hypothyroidism, hypokalemia, and hepatotoxicity. The next drug is ethionamide. It inhibits mycolic acid production, therefore is bactericidal. Its adverse effects are hepatitis and blurred vision. Bedaquiline is a new type of anti-tubercular drug. It acts by blocking ATP synthase and is a bactericidal. It is used in extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis treatment and multi-drug resistant tuberculosis treatment. It is advised for 6 months along with an optimized background regimen. In the first 2 weeks, 400 mg per day is given, followed by 200 mg thrice a week till the end of the 24th week. Note that there should be a 48-hour gap between these doses. Since we have discussed the drugs used in tuberculosis infections, now we must understand the dosage and route of administration of these drugs. For drug-sensitive bacilli, oral first-line anti-tubercular drugs are administered daily. As per WHO recommendations, multi-drug therapy is used for all cases of TB. The objectives of MDT are 1. To make the patient non-infectious as early as possible by rapidly killing the dividing bacilli and decrease transmission of the disease. 2. To prevent development of drug-resistant bacilli. And 3. To decrease morbidity and mortality. In 2018, the revised National Tuberculosis Control Program, the RNTCP guidelines were launched, in which they adopted the DOTS strategy. What is DOTS, you ask? Well, it stands for Direct Observed Therapy. It means that a trained healthcare worker or family member provides the prescribed drugs to the infected and watches the patient swallow each dose. This was done to ensure that there would be no overall spread of tuberculosis across the community. Now, coming to the specifics of treatment of tuberculosis. It is divided into drug-sensitive tuberculosis and drug-resistant tuberculosis. Let us discuss drug-sensitive tuberculosis first. The patients under this are again divided into two categories, Category 1 and Category 2. The Category 1 patients are those that haven't been exposed to tuberculosis and its drugs previously, while those in Category 2 are the patients that have been exposed to tuberculosis and its drugs for treatment. Intensive phase is to render the patient non-contagious. It is administered daily or thrice weekly for 2 months. The continuous phase is to eliminate the remaining bacilli and prevent relapse. It is administered 3 times daily for a duration of 15 months. Before going into further detail, let us understand what the following term means. 2HRZE. 2 stands for the number of months of treatment, while the letters such as H stands for Isoniazid, R for Rifampicin, Z for Pyrazinamide, E for ethambutol, and S for streptomycin. Remember the RNTCP revised guidelines for treatment? Mainly, it stated that now treatment should exclude the use of the drug streptomycin, and the treatment of both Category 1 and Category 2 patients must be the same. This still must be implemented widely, so let's discuss both the guidelines of treatment. Let us use this as our key to understanding the following table. In the intensive phase of treatment for a Category 1 patient, 2 months of treatment is preferred with 4 drugs denoted HRZE. We all know what that stands for. While in Category 2, 3 months of treatment is required, 2 months with HRZES and 1 month without streptomycin, that is just HRZE. In the continuous phase of treatment for a Category 1 patient, 4 months of treatment is preferred with 3 drugs denoted HRE, while in Category 2, 5 months of treatment is preferred with the same line of drugs as that of Category 1. Now, coming to the revised guidelines. According to this, in the intensive phase of treatment for a Category 1 patient, 2 months of treatment is preferred with 4 drugs denoted HRZE, and in the continuous phase for Category 1, 4 months of treatment is given with 3 drugs denoted HRE. Coming to Category 2, the treatment is same as that of Category 1. And now if we look at both the tables on the screen, we can see that not much difference is seen apart from the use of streptomycin being removed and the change in the duration here and there. Alright then, so all this was for treating drug-sensitive tuberculosis. Now let's discuss in brief about the drug-resistant tuberculosis. It has a few categories. Firstly, monodrug-resistant tuberculosis. It is resistant to any one first-line oral drug except rifampicin. In intensive phase regimen, 5 drugs are preferred for 3 to 6 months, while in continuous phase regimen, 4 drugs are preferred for 4 months. Next, we have polydrug-resistant tuberculosis. It is resistant to 2 or more first-line drugs other than both H and R. Referring to our key, we all know what H stands for, Isoniazid, and R stands for rifampicin. In the intensive phase regimen, 5 drugs are preferred for 3 to 6 months, and continuous phase regimen 4 drugs for 6 months. Third is MDR or rifampicin-resistant tuberculosis. It is resistant to both H and R. In the intensive phase regimen, 7 drugs are preferred for 6 to 9 months, and the continuous phase regimen, 5 drugs are preferred for 18 months. In fourth, we have extensively resistant or XDR tuberculosis. It is resistant to at least one fluoroquinolone and any second-line injectable drug. Intensive phase regimen, 7 drugs are preferred for 6 to 12 months, and continuous phase regimen, 6 drugs are preferred for 18 months. And in 5th place, we have tuberculosis requiring bedaquiline treatment. In this, treatment is indicated in the cases of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis and extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis, and the failure of both MDR and XDR treatment regimens. For all cases of bedaquiline treatment, the duration is 6 months. Dose for the first 2 weeks is 400 mg daily, thereafter 200 mg thrice weekly. And lastly, a shorter MDR TB regimen. It is for resistance and prior exposure to second-line anti-tubercular drugs. It consists of treatment with 7 drugs in IP and treatment duration of 9 to 12 months. It's always best to cross-link our information with every field. So let's talk about how it would affect a patient undergoing dental treatment. It's always best to wait till the tuberculosis has been treated before performing dental procedures. It won't really affect the staff unless the patient is having active pulmonary tuberculosis and the staff is immunocompromised. Drug interactions should always be kept in mind. As we discussed previously, rifampicin causes orange discoloration of saliva and sputum. It is imperative that we use heat sterilization and disinfectants against the Mycobacterium bacilli.